I am a temple who walks the earth. My womb is fertile for giving birth. I am a woman planted in truth. I grow my branches from sacred roots. You are the form of who you wanna be. So come untethered, your soul is free. We're here to heal, we're here to thrive. We are a dream who's come alive. We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination for God's sake. A revelation for God's sake. An evolution for God's sake. An inspiration for God's sake. 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 For God's sake.
And so it is. Hello, Essence. This is Jody England, and you are listening to Wild Soul Medicine Radio. Thanks for hanging in there with us. If you were here at the top of the hour, we had some minor technology issues, and here we are for real. So I'm excited to be with you today. You know, the topic of this show is one that I meant to be provocative. I can't stand you because... And it's not personal, beloved. It's not you, it's me. And it's not even you I'm talking about. And, you know, really what we're going to be playing in today is how can we use these people in our lives, these relationships with our children, our partners, our our clients sometimes. How can we use those relationships, those especially triggery, sticky ones, to actually portal into a deeper understanding of ourselves? How do we navigate the ego that would have us stand in righteousness, pointing our finger at that one who is wrong, who did it badly, who, is not me? How would we use that as a way to come to unity and peace within ourselves? And so that's what we're shining the light on today, and we're doing it from a space of compassion, and that's really why I titled the show in such a provocative way, because I feel like, so often we're not actually in touch with the vehemence of our projections, right? And so, some of us are. If you're a warrior, you're probably very in touch with your projections. And if you're, a more sunshiny version, if you're a heroine or a shapeshifter, you're probably more in touch with, well, that thing is uncomfortable and I don't love it, but I'm just going to, love that person. And what I find is the more I get in touch with my projections, the more possibility I have for using them as medicine, And so I don't actually find that hiding from the truth of your judgments serves. And so we're coming straight out with it. Like, yes, I have this judgment and I can own it. And owning it sometimes involves going all the way into it. What is your story? What are all of those thoughts you're having about that person? What exactly is wrong with them? And listing all of the things, so that we can really be clear about where we're at with it, and then begin this gentle process of letting go and softening the tendrils and finding a way to let yourself actually receive the medicine, right? So I'm going to share some stories with you by way of illuminating what that path can look like, what it has been looking like for me recently. And, as always, this is medicine for me too, because as I share it, I deepen into what's true, what's even more true about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are even more epiphanies that I have as I share these awarenesses with you. And of course, so fitting, because remember last week we did the show on the red tent for mothers and being with our feelings about, our children going back to school and getting honest with all of that and discerning the truth, And so then on the heels of that, there was this experience that I had a very spacious weekend, like Friday through Monday, just my husband and I hanging out and really enjoying so much beautiful time. The weather was perfect and we were lounging by our pool and in our trees and just loving one another and talking about life in the world. And first of all, I want to just make the case for that needs to be happening, sisters. That needs to be happening so much more than we allow it to, because in our busyness, we're out running, right? So it's like we're running and then we have medicine showing itself to us, but then we just tuck it in a pocket as we're running to the next thing. And we're not actually pausing to see what we even put in our pocket. And pretty soon we're trying to run full speed, but we've got like these pockets full of walnuts and we're bulging at the seams and we become like a chipmunk, storing nuts for the winter instead of, pausing to crack one open and see if there's a fortune inside. So as we were, in this beautiful space, some of it was love and light and gratitude and beauty. And then, just kind of in passing, we were talking about our kids and talking about how they annoy us and what particularly annoys us about them. And, I think this is sometimes a place where we mothers fear to tread because, we have guilt about not being loving 24/7 and what does it mean about us and what would it mean about our children if we were to get honest with, how shitty they are. And, for us, nothing's off the table. Like we can talk about anything and, we're just real. So one of the things that we were first talking about is my son. And, if you follow my Facebook posts and you listen to this show, I don't talk about my son near as much. Some of it is because he's really private and he hates it when I talk about him. And also just because he's difficult, right? He is a difficult child. And I want to tell you a little bit about him. So he is brilliant. He has a genius IQ. He has been reading at a 12th grade level since he was in, the 3rd grade. He's extremely mature, highly advanced, and he loves adult humor. And really, with his intelligence, we can't actually keep him from, adult kinds of things because it's just what his mind is available for. And he's also highly telepathic. And so he knows all kinds of stuff. Even if we would try to keep something from him, he would know it. And, this has been since he, was a tiny boy. His babysitters would say things like, does Aiden just know things? And we're like, yeah, yeah, that's the thing with him. And so, he's definitely an indigo. He's got lots of heat to him and very quirky, like potentially maybe on like the Asperger's scale, like the very end of it. Like he is social and popular at school. And also, because he's so particularly intelligent in a certain way, he's not emotionally intelligent hardly at all, right? So he tends to like push his humor beyond where people are available for it, and he doesn't really read signals of what the group, would fit with, and so there's prickles, right? There's prickles around him, and it's hard to get in a rhythm with him because his soul path is he's a primary warrior, secondary hero. And so he's very compartmentalized, very detail oriented. And also, he will poke you. He will poke you. If there's any peace in a situation, he has a way of like making a comment or doing a thing that actually sends a ripple through the whole space, And so here he is in this family of me, right? And then my husband, who is very unusually only one soul path. He's just a hero. So he's very purely this like gallant knight. And then my daughter, who's the same soul path as me. So it's a potent family. It's a very potent family as we travel together here. And so what happens with my son is, this happens in lots of families. And you may be this person, or you may be, or you may be experiencing a child who is this. And, I sort of feel like, in a way, this show is the homage to that. And it's also the call for those of us who are not that to start taking the medicine from those people, right, who are that. So, we've done many, many things to try to, figure out how to be with him and to love him more. And he constantly, he is the source. When we go into ceremonies, so often we're like, okay, give me more capacity to love this kid. Give me capacity to be with him and to have more peace around my interactions with him and so forth. And so that's who he is. His name is Aiden. He's amazing. He is an amazing, amazing creature. And I do love him to pieces. And so recently we had this big discussion with him around if he would go to public school or not. And he did go to public school last year for the first year. And it was a little bit of a nightmare. He had a really hard time sitting down and listening to what people told him to do. And he didn't have the freedom he had in his public school or his private school. So it was a whole situation. And long story short, we weren't sure if he was going to go back to public school this year, but he did. And so he's now in junior high. He's in 7th grade. And he's really on this path to do the opposite of what I want. That's who he is, right? So, he can't stand that I'm a, quote, hippie and that I do this stupid energy stuff. And he wants to be in public school because it's more regular. And, oh, by the way, he wants to play football. I mean, really, literally, if there was a list of things that I would not want my child to do, he's checking it off one by one, this kid. Right. And so here's me over here working my enlightened path where I'm like, okay, so I will find more Zen around that. And then, okay, let me see if I can, clear some stuff and meet him where he is. And I can be more patient. So I've done all of that. Right. And so he's been medicine all along the way in all of those realms. So here he is. He signs up for football. And I have to just tell you, he weighs 80 pounds. Right. So he's in the 7th grade. He is skinny as a beanpole. He's tiny. He is very much a nerdy brainiac. But he's got this bravado in him. So he thinks he's amazing. He thinks he's always the best at everything that he does. And so he signs up for football, which he's never played before. And he's really not good at. And he's actually kind of afraid of. But he acts like he isn't. Now, this has been really interesting because my husband was a really good football player and is very athletic. And so the trigger for my husband in all of that is, here is my son acting like he's all that on the football field, but he doesn't even wear his thigh pads to practice. So most of the time he has to stand on the sideline and not even play, and my husband's whole chivalrous code is, you have to be respectful and you have to, do what's yours to do and show up in service and, be all for the team. And, and my son kind of shits all over that, right? So, and then my trigger, of course, is why are you playing this Neanderthal sport where you're whacking your brain up against other Neanderthal kids who, aren't doing anything philosophical for the world, but they're just engaging in this stupid, primal masculine behavior, blah, 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 right? This is me. So here's this kid. Now, what he's been doing all this time is since he started playing football, he's been collecting touchdown dances, right? So he's an avid YouTuber and he goes on and he sees what all of the pro football guys are doing in their touchdown dances. And he has a whole repertoire of them. He has a photographic memory. So he remembers all of the details, what happened in the play before the touchdown dance, who did it, all of the moves of it, and so on, right? So every day he's coming home with hey, Dad, here's another touchdown dance. If this happens, if I get in the game and then I get by 6 people and then I'm going to somersault into the end zone and then I'm going to stand up and he'll walk us through all of the motions of the touchdown dance. Well, it's like nails on a chalkboard to both of us, right? Because we're just like disconnected with, what do you mean you're not even practicing and this is not even your thing? And what are you doing with this, right? And so we've been trying to tend his ego and like, be a little humble. And also you're not allowed to do a touchdown dance. So don't do that and embarrass us or upset your team. Like all of these parental things. Yeah. So here we are, my husband and I lounging in our like beautiful wonderland of awesomeness and talking about this annoying kid collecting touchdown dances and, what in the world can be done with him. And all of a sudden I have this epiphany. It's like I could actually see my boy and who he actually is and the medicine that he's trying to bring to us that we've been ignoring because we've been so pointing the finger at him and trying to make him be something for us, that we've been missing it like by a mile, right? And so here's what I saw. I saw this son who is carrying my shadow and my husband's shadow and my daughter's shadow. Incidentally, my daughter's a secondary warrior, right? So here's this boy who's in the middle of these potent, powerful, fiery galactic beings. And his job is to constantly hold up the mirror to show us our shadows any place we are not in integrity. Right? Can you imagine the strength of soul it takes for somebody to come and do that for me? Just for me, that would be a gigantic job, right? But to do it for my daughter, who is a mini me, and for my husband, who's like the galactic space holder of me, oh my God, right? So I saw this and I had this softening for my son of like, no wonder he wants to be in his video games all the time. Because it's like he does his job. He shows you your shadow and then he retreats to his room while you wallow in it. For real. And I just had so much gratitude that, he's willing to do that for us, for one. And then I start to see the magic in the irony of the metaphor that he's collecting touchdown dances, right? So it just so happens that my husband is in an exploration of the hero, right? He is on the hero's quest to understand who he is and to realize that he doesn't just support awesome, he is awesome, right? And so he's got this son who is literally showing him day in and day out, here's what awesome could look like, Dad, right? Here's what awesome would look like if you knew you were a hero and you could just somersault into the end zone and then stand up and celebrate your own awesomeness. This is what it could look like, right? And actually, it's totally cool and fine. And you can toot your own horn. And in fact, you need to. This is how you become a whole and complete human being, right? He's modeling it for his dad. Oh my God. No wonder it's been so annoying for him, right? And then he has this mother. He has this mother who is a psychic alien medicine woman who struggles mightily with incarnating in her own body. And you might say needs some modeling on how to touch down. To touch down in this life, right? It's the metaphor of the touchdown dance. And it's exactly what I was playing in this weekend was, incarnating here in the lightness of being embodied as a human being on planet Earth, literally touching down. And I've got this child, right? Let the children lead them. This child who's literally standing there like one of those guys at the airport with the lights that are showing you where to land, with his motions. Like you could touch down here, you could somersault right down and in, and then you could do a dance to celebrate your arrival. Yeah. And that is the magic, right? That is the magic that is here for us in all of our relationships. These revelations of people you chose to come here with in contract, You said, you go be a soul in a human body and play with how galactic you are, and if you can get it into a body. And what I'm going to do is keep poking you every time you don't do it, right? So that when you land, we can all dance and celebrate together, right? We high-five each other up in the spiritual realms, and then down we come. We slip into our forgetting, and the game is on, right? And so, this is the beauty of these children, right? And I want to share another story just in case, that one's tied up pretty neatly in a beautiful bow. And what I want to share is it didn't feel like a beautiful bow the last 11 years that I've been trying to figure this kid out, right? And it won't be perfect. It won't even be perfect from here, right? But I can just feel how I finally got a big piece of what he was sharing, and getting that piece actually has created so much grace in my system around accepting him how he is, meeting him where he is, and knowing actually what he needs from me and from us, And so, we continue to dance, right? And I certainly have medicine for him as well. And all we can really do is take our own medicine. That is the key, right? So we had that experience, Lance and I, and it was like, wow, that was potent. Like, let's see what else, right? So we just kind of lay there, and, I think this actually might've been a different day than Lance was saying, this thing happened with Olivia, and it was so weird and kind of like annoying. Like, so we were getting some clothes for Aiden, and, she wanted to eat. She always wants to eat out, and she's really kind of struggling with her weight right now. And we're all trying to support her in eating, making better choices without making it like a weight thing. And so it's been, like a minefield we're navigating, and she's beginning to take responsibility for it herself, but she really has some attachments, right? So she was talking about dinner. What would we do for dinner? And I wasn't with them. It was just Lance and Aiden and Olivia. So what would we do for dinner? And, he's doing his hero thing, like whatever you want, and I'll support it. And how should we do it? And so she leverages them, and she basically gets everything she wants. And so they end up going to Fazoli's, which is not a healthy choice for her. And then they get there and they decide to drive through, right? And then they get in the drive through, so they're now locked into the choice. And she says, well, I mean, I came here because I was going to go inside so I could get a salad so I could make a healthy choice. But now I guess I'm just going to have to order fettuccine Alfredo because we're in the drive-thru. Right? And so she's showing up as medicine, right? She doesn't even know she's showing up as medicine. Neither does my son. He thinks he's collecting touchdown dances, right? And so my husband, the hero who's trying to be chivalrous and do everything the maiden wants, takes it as an offense that, she's projecting on him when he gave her everything he wanted. And didn't he do this gallant service, right? And so he says that to me, and he's like, so what's the medicine in that? And I said, well, I don't know. I guess we'd have to try it on for ourselves. I forgive myself, right? So one of the ways I like to try on a projection for myself is I begin with, I forgive myself. So it softens me and it opens me. So I forgive myself for making choices and then blaming other people for limiting my choices, right? And as soon as I said it, we both were like, oh my goddess, that's exactly what's happening for both of us, right? So, as a mama and really just, this has been a large part of my walk as well, is, I often will say, well, if it wasn't for the kids, I would live somewhere else. If it wasn't for having these family responsibilities, I would do this thing my soul really wants, but I'm going to sacrifice for you guys, and do a thing that's not as good for my soul. Right? My husband, as a hero, like that's the name of the game. So I would leave this shitty job that I really hate and I wish I wasn't in, but, I'm going to sacrifice for all of you and keep eating the pudding, And as we tried it on, it was like, oh my gosh, I can forgive myself for doing that, right? I can forgive myself for selling myself out and not having the courage to own it, and so blaming somebody else for it. Right? What a gift. I could never have seen that if it wasn't for this difficult journey my daughter is on with understanding herself and learning what choices she makes and how she can be who she wants to be, even with all of these pulls and desires and muddiness around not doing that, you know? And so I have an invitation. You know, the invitation is for you to join me here in this space. And it may be with your children. You know, certainly if you have children, there are lessons for you 100%. And if you don't have children, it could be your romantic relationship. It could be, really anyone you're in relationship with that you are, that you find yourself regularly engaged in some kind of trigger or stickiness or drama. So go ahead and just choose one. Choose one person right now that you want to be in relationship and you actually love. But there's something, right? There's this thing between you that keeps coming up and you're sure it's them. You're sure if they just fixed that, your relationship would be good, right? Yeah, because I got to tell you, you know, with my daughter so many times, it's like mealtime is very tense for us around here because she'll say she wants to make a healthier choice, and I can see that her weight is not serving her in, you know, the activities she wants to be part of. And yet every time we've tried a different, you know, like I'll just do the meals and you'll have them, or I'll just do it this way or you'll just do it that way. It ends up in tension and fight and struggle, right? Because she gets so mad at herself and I'm getting mad at myself because I'm not helping her. And right. So there's been this whole thing of like, whose problem is this? Who should do something here? You know? And what I consistently find is, you know, you might have the same issue that has multiple pieces of medicine. So this is not the last time that she's going to struggle with what to choose to eat. I actually fully digested the medicine of that particular issue, right? So the more free I become, the less attachment I bring to the interaction with her, which creates more freedom for her to start taking her medicine around it. Do you see? It's this beautiful system. And the thing about it is we get confused because when we start to wake up, we start to think that, you know, we're waking up in spite of those people we're in relationship with, right? This is this tricky egoic thing that happens. It happens with every one of my clients. I call it enlightened snobbiness, right? Every one of my clients who births a core event or gets a big dose of evolutionary velocity instantly turns toward her partner or her children, usually her partner if she's in relationship, and she says, there's a big problem here because I cannot continue to grow if he's going to be that, right? If he's going to be that asleep, if he's going to be that dense or slow or whatever, right? That was my story with Lance for years and years and years and years. It's still a little bit of crack if I need it, right? I can still go back and take a little hit of that every once in a while. And I'm learning more and more and more to just take the medicine, right? To just take what he's reflecting to me so that I can be free. Not about being right? You love this person. So your ego wants to be right and righteous, but actually that's just hurting your soul and it's slowing your soul down. So what we're invited into here is, what if we could actually allow ourselves to soften, right? So there's a couple ways we can do this. So one of the ways, and I think we'll just do both of the ways, right? So the first way, this is actually Byron Katie's work. If you're not familiar with her, it's Byron, Byron, Katie, Katie. And her work is called The Work, okay? I think that might be her website too, thework.com. And she does this process, right? It's called Judge Your Neighbor. And I think actually this worksheet may be on her website. Viv, if you can find that on her website, maybe post a link over on the chat page. The chat page is www.wsmrchat.com. And so we'll post the link over there when we find it. And so what this worksheet walks you through is you choose someone that you are irritated with. And so in this case, choose who you were just thinking of. And the first thing you do is you write down this person, I can't stand this person because, right? And then you just start ranting. So you don't have to have the worksheet. Just write it on a piece of paper. I can't stand my daughter because, right? And you don't need all of the softeners like, well, I really love her, but it's just this one thing. We get that. But just in this moment, see if you can let yourself be as judgmental, as triggery, as hateful as you actually are about whatever this sticky issue is. Right? Niceness does not serve you here. Niceness has you go underground with the projections, which actually becomes like a cancer in your own system, right? So I can't stand the way so-and-so does this because, right? So the because would be things like, because it's, he doesn't even realize that he's not all that, because, he thinks he's a valuable player, but he really isn't. Right? Because, she's using me as a way to not get what she wants, but I'm fully available for giving her what she wants. And that feels like manipulation. Do you see what I mean? Yep. So just write down, maybe write down 5 or 10 things. I can't stand this person because I can't stand the way this person does this thing because here's what it means to me. Here's what I believe about it. Go ahead and write that down for yourself. Great. Okay, so now some of you may already, if you know this work, you've already done it, right? After you do this process several times, you start to know that just as you write it down, oh gosh, that's about me, right? And if it's new for you, or if you're deeply in your righteousness around it, let me just say this. Your righteousness is a protection. Right? We're not taking the medicine because we're bad people or because we're actually mean and awful and petty. We're righteous because it's a protection mechanism. So there's a part in us that we aren't willing to be with. We don't like it. We can sense it's not serving us. And yet it's painful and scary to acknowledge because at some other point in our lives, someone else saw it and acknowledged it. And it felt dangerous. And so we took it underground, right? So here we are living with this thing inside of us. And because it feels painful and scary to look at it in us, our psyche has us see it in other people. So when we see it in other people, the pain is out of us, right? And then what our ego does is it jumps into comparison. And so the comparison is, look at how they're way worse than me. See, I'm pointing my finger as I'm saying that. Look at how they're way worse than me. And actually, I love to do that when I fill out these worksheets, I don't actually usually do it formally anymore, but I just do it in, I like to act out the drama to really get into can you see the nerve of him celebrating a touchdown dance when he's not even going to get in the game, right? Literally, okay? So you're pointing your finger, you're wagging it, you've got all of your judgments. Okay, then step 2 comes, and step 2 is, take one sentence and replace that person's name with I, right? I can't stand myself because I want to celebrate my arrival before I've even gotten all the way in the game. It's about me, right? You just take that finger that's pointing out and you turn it right back towards your own heart. And then instead of making it a pointy finger, just place your hand on your heart, right? I need to slow down my life. I need to slow down my pace because it's killing me and it's killing us, right? And then we just hold ourselves right there in our tender heart. And I forgive myself for that. I forgive myself for those times when I outrun myself. I forgive myself for those times when, right? One of the things I noticed about my son is I forgive myself for loving to show people their shadows so fucking much. Right? I mean, it's the thing we all complain about, my son and our household, is, oh my gosh, you can never just leave it alone, right? And it's not like he's out there, being Freud. It's not like he's like, here's your shadow and here's what you do. He shows it to you by trying your patience or triggering you to the point where any place you're not peace and love comes forward forcefully, right? And he loves that. He lives for it. He lives to pull you off your center. He's made for it, actually, right? The light of that is he's a high integrity holder. So he knows when you're full of shit. He knows when you say you love him, but you don't. He knows when you're not fully available for him being all that he is, and he's going to call you on it in all kinds of ways, right? And that's who I am. That's who I am. And when I start to take the medicine, what I can start to see in him is, here's the places where that's good, and here's the places where that doesn't serve. Here's where it doesn't serve a system. Here's where it doesn't serve my family. Here's where it doesn't serve me, right? Everything has a gift and a shadow. That's how you can love it. So it's not that you're wrong for, if you're running too fast and you're blaming your husband for being the fast runner, right? It's not that you're wrong for it. It's just a wake up for discernment around where are you running too fast. And some places that serves, your quickness is a gift. And some places it doesn't, right? And so as we forgive ourselves and turn inward, we get to soften to, I get curious. I wonder what that would look like. What is it I'm desiring for that person to do or to change? What would it look like if they gave me the thing I wanted? What would it look like? If my son started being peace and love, what would that look like? How would I know? What would he do with touchdown dances if he was peace and love? That might be my aha. Let me just see, because I don't have the answer to that as I ask it. What do I want my son to do? Yeah. What I desire for him to do is to be true, to have a realistic perspective of himself, so that that he can do the work it takes to have a real touchdown dance. That's what I want for him. And that's what I want for myself, right? That's the medicine I need to take. I keep wanting to have arrived. I want to say like, oh, I made it. I had a ceremony. I did a clearing. I'm here. I did it, right? And in reality, I want for myself to drop in and do the work that's required to have an epic touchdown run. That's what I want, right? And so from there, I just get to be that. I get to focus on that. I don't have to do anything with him. In fact, the more I try to do with him around making him be the thing that I want, the harder it gets for both of us. So I just deepen in and start doing my work, and you can see how that then creates an opportunity for him to match. This is actually quantum physics. So what happens in quantum physics is, they take one particle and they split it into two. And what they notice is the particles spin in the same direction. And then they take one of the particles thousands of miles away to another quantum physics, reactor. And they change the direction of the spin on that particular part of the particle. And what happens thousands of miles away is the other piece of the particle reverses its spin to match. This is how the universe works, my beloveds. And so, we're in these relationships and we're all like waiting for the other person to change. If they would just do the damn thing, right? And the thing is, you are your own quantum physics experiment. You get to drop in, right? You get to use the beauty and the gift of this soul who contracted to come here with you and be your mirror to say, what else needs to happen with me right now? How is this my medicine? And if we can start to learn to do that with more grace and ease and gentleness for ourselves, it becomes so much easier to let it in. So much easier to let it in. I forgive myself, right? I forgive myself for all the times I haven't seen this medicine. I forgive myself for not wanting to take it even right now, I forgive myself for, I want to say for being the medicine for other people, but I don't forgive myself for that. This is where I am my boy, right? I love being medicine for other people. If I trigger you, all the better, because I know that's a portal for you. Yeah? Yeah. And I'm learning as I take my medicine to do that with more and more love, with less and less egoic, I showed you and I told you, right? And more, like here I am. I may look like your mother right now, and I'm happy to stand in for that. Except for in this version of your mother, I really love you. Right? I really do. Yeah. So I'd love to actually play. I feel like there is a coaching that could happen here that would bring further illumination to this experience. So if you're listening live and you'd like to call in and play with me, the number is 937-552-2747, 937-552-2747. And let's do it around this topic. So, if there's a person in your life that is bringing you medicine and you're not able to see what that medicine might be, let's take a look together and see what we can discover. Right. So as we wait for those calls to be answered and transferred and all of that, let's just receive a big, deep breath together. This can be a lot to take on, right? It's a lot to take on. And one of the things I love about it is it actually, this process works with your ego. So, in this consciousness movement, there's a whole lot of try to be peaceful and try to circumnavigate things like anger and judgment. And actually, our egos are built for that. So if we just embrace it and go right at it, of course, I have a judgment about you, right? And I could have a judgment about anybody. If I looked at you long enough, I would come up with a judgment. And that's not because I'm more evil or judgmental. It's because I'm more honest and more awake than most people, right? And so I'm conscious to what happens in my system around judging all kinds of things. So as you give the candy to your ego of I can't stand you because, I can't stand this person because, it actually engages your ego in playing, right? So that you're not battling the ego and trying to get it to let go, but you're instead getting to align with it so that you can open and see what's next. Okay. So it looks like we have a caller. Let's open the lines and see how we go here. Hi, this is Jody. You're on the air. Who's this?
Hi, Jody. It's Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks.
Thanks for calling to play. So who are we taking a look at today?
Well, I have a total match for your son, with my son, who's almost 20.
Yep.
And I was just even talking about him last night to a friend, just about how I'm trying to navigate my relationship with him after all of these years of him really triggering me in so many beautiful ways.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and that I want to be there and be supportive of him and not push him away, because I know that there's still medicine there for each of us to grow. But also finding that happy medium of letting him have his space to figure it out and not try to push anything that I know could be helpful for him onto him, because he's just not available for it.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So we may get to the big meta thing that he's here to teach you, but let's see if we can start with, because this is the homework, right? This is everyone who's listening, is we start with the specific, what are you engaged with him around right now that's triggering?
Okay. Yeah, so he is capable of being out on his own, and he is choosing to be homeless, and so I let him stay in a trailer I have on my property and just let him come in and shower, and that's about it. We're not having a lot of interaction other than that, because he's trying to show me my shit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm where I still need more love and acceptance for who he is and what he's choosing at this time.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And,
I got it. I got the meta. Yep, I got the meta. So, okay, so let's see if we can draw this out for everybody rather than jumping to it. So, him being homeless,
Yeah.
I wonder how that might be. So, could you just say that in a trigger statement? I can't stand him because.
Can't stand him because he wants to claim that I still owe him something.
And that annoys you because?
We are all here to figure out our stuff, and everybody's had their share of traumatic childhood.
Mm-hmm. And so that's annoying because?
It's annoying because it took me so long to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
And
okay, go ahead. What was the other part?
I think that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So let's just replace my son with I, right?
Okay.
And let's start with forgiveness. So I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that other people owe me
that
stuff.
other people
Mm-hmm.
owe me.
Mm-hmm. You could say, or my mom. You could even say that my mom owes me stuff.
Oh, yeah. I forgive myself for believing that my mom owes me stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that I still turn to her for support
Mm-hmm.
when I should be able to do it myself.
Mm. Does that resonate anywhere inside you?
Oh, for sure. All the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I have so much gratitude for her for supporting me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there's that part of me that's like, well, someday maybe he'll have gratitude that I supported him even a tiny bit.
No, isn't that so tricky?
Mm-hmm.
So tricky, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, so he's showing you what a different discernment of that type of gratitude could be, right? So that, there's undying gratitude, right? Where you're attached to how perfect and awesome she was. And can you ever be that, right?
All right. Yeah.
And then there might be some other kind of gratitude, right? So it could be an invitation for you to let go of, is there an even purer way that you could be in love and gratitude for what she did? And it feels like you're being called into not comparing yourself to her.
Right.
Right?
For sure.
Yep. And then I hear a meta lesson in there for you too that I'm just going to share.
Okay.
So do you want to remind everyone what your soul paths are?
I am a great mother shapeshifter.
Yeah. And so, one of the core issues or lessons for a shapeshifter is having a home within yourself.
Yeah.
So here you have this boy who is perpetually homeless, right? And there's all this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I finally found my home and created my home and am embracing my home and putting limitations on who can be in that home.
Yeah, and I would say, right, so we don't want to shortchange ourselves here because the ego steps back in and then I figured it out and then he didn't. And so here's the thing. He's showing up as trigger because there's a piece of it you don't yet have it figured out, right? So, yeah, so the opening is I forgive myself for the places where I still am homeless within myself.
Uh-huh.
Right? Yeah. Because you've figured a lot out, and yet here's this boy that can still pull you outside of your home. Literally, right? Outside of your home that you've built. He pulls you out to the trailer, and he pulls you out of I would be myself except for, this kid.
Uh-huh.
Right? Isn't that great?
Yeah, and I love him for it. Thank you.
I mean, it's a lot easier to love him when you get what he's showing you, so you can do the thing, right? So it's not about him going out and getting a home. It's like when you get a home in you, something different's going to happen there.
Yes.
Yep. And that's why all of the external world stuff that people might say, like you should make a move out or just set a hard limit or a boundary, like it'll just keep being sticky unless you do this internal work.
Yeah. Yeah, I have all the other kids in the family trying to push for, why don't you just do this and do that with him, and so it felt like I was putting more and more limitations on my relationship with him, to kind of be like, okay, look, until you change yourself, none of us are going to be happy.
Yeah.
And that wasn't where I wanted to be with it. I knew that wasn't the answer. I knew that that has not served his whole entire life. That's the same pattern we've been engaged in from the beginning.
I know. And it's just, we can forgive ourselves when we do that because sometimes it's just exhausting to try to not look at our own medicine for so long, right? Mm-hmm. And so, we do the easy thing. That's just how we're wired. So we can really forgive ourselves for that.
Yeah.
So Jennifer, I would love to hear, what would you like for him to do?
Okay. Oh. Because he also has a really hard time with some mental health issues that are just more like because he has the tug of war between his two soul paths. I don't really believe in that label, but he has started to believe it about himself. So I would like to see for him that he knows he's whole and complete as he is, and he has everything within himself to be a success and to embrace his beauty and intelligence and to make a stand in the world.
Amen. Amen. Mm-hmm. So that's a prayer for you, Mama.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whole and complete in yourself, not needing your mom's approval, not needing to, weigh or measure your mothering of him, but just feeling the beauty of the wholeness of who you already are. Mm-hmm. Embracing all of your parts and letting it be good.
I will. So it is.
Mm-hmm. And so it is. Yeah. And I'm really struck by the beauty of, a mother that would be so deeply on her path as you are, and who would, given what you manage in the world, and I'll just share, this is a woman who, has raised 4 kids on her own and works a, full-time plus job and listens to self-improvement, things like she's enrolled in a bunch of hours of school, of self-improvement school. And then she listens to things like this on her, like while she's working, this woman's at work doing this for her son. Right. And so, honey, I'm just struck by, I wonder if you could let that in, if you could just let that in.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I embrace all of the beauty that he has put into my life of wanting to be a better person for my sake, and then letting that radiate out to all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm also really getting that, like, he's forcing you into your own brand of mothering, because you are not your mother. She had you for a daughter. Oh my God, could that have been easier? No wonder she was so great. Right? You signed up for a different track.
I totally did.
Different track.
I get that from day one. I got in the line for the hard children.
Yep. Yep.
And the hard husbands.
Yep.
And partners.
Totally.
I said, I'll just bring it all on right all at once. I've got this stuff.
Yes. And, you know, there was a lot you learned about that early on, that whole version of like awakening in spite of them. And now you're in this version of I'm awake because of them. And also it's time to just be awake, right? To be awake in this home that is me. Less about this push-pull of relationship that seats you outside of your home, and more about getting to know this wallpaper of essence inside of you. This is this fierce flute of discernment, right? I pulled a card just before the show I was sharing with Viv, and it's this Kuan Yin card about the fierce flute of discernment. And it's like, I can love you, but from a place of loving me. Right? So it's like I am the big rock in the container. And from that place of fierce love, I don't have to come in judgment because that sticks both of us. So from that place, I can start to then decide like these choices are what make me happy and fulfilled. This is my spiritual path. Right? And it comes from I'm blowing the flute, and then anything that is less of a vibration begins to fall away. And it's not less of a vibration like he's less of a vibration. It's like this energy of leaking no longer needs to be in my space.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes, I had another match with another person in my life. Same thing, that I was really holding onto my integrity of, you know, this is who I am. You know, I could be judging, but I'm not. I just want to love you where you're at and hope that you see how much I love you and that I'm staying up here.
Yep. And in the meantime, up in front of me goes a wall that has my particular wallpaper of loving myself, right? And so now I'm reflecting me to me, and that's the work.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So beautiful, sweetheart. Thank you so much.
I loved it.
Would you be willing to say your son's first name?
David.
I want to say Jai David, right? We celebrate you, beautiful soul. Thank you for holding this space for your mother and for being in this contract with her and holding up your end so integrally, you know? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Uh-huh. All right, beauty. Thanks for playing.
Thank you.
Until next time.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, honey. All right, sisters. So we have work to do. I invite you to share what you're experiencing if you're stuck and you're unable to see, because it is hard, right? When we're in these relationship dances, it can be hard to see what the medicine is. And then sometimes we get a glimpse of it and then we slide into some judgment or some, it's hard to just stay and loving ourselves and doing our own work, especially when there's something so tempting outside of you, like this person who's doing this wrong thing. So let's play with that in the tribe. Let's support each other in receiving the medicine that is on our plate. And that's facebook.com/groups/Wild Soul Medicine Radio Tribe. We would love to play with you there. All right, beloveds. So thank you for being in this space of deep inquiry and being willing to take a look. It really is the only thing that we can do. And there is so much freedom in these portals that we have created in our lives. So happy looking. I love you. Until next time.
We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination, for God's sake. A revelation, for God's sake. An inspiration, for God's sake. Illumination, for God's sake. For God's sake. For God's sake. For God's sake.